Wheatley is one of gaming's most memorable antagonists for his quirky personality and British accent.
Bloody dangerous.
But I've always felt that there's more than meets the eye. After all, he seems much more alive with personal ambitions and desires compared to his fellow cores, almost like he has an uploaded consciousness similar to GLaDOS. But whose consciousness would the freaks at Aperture upload into a terrible idea generator? And then I remembered this line.
Let there be light. That's, God. It's quoting God.
Quoting biblical God? A blind desire for power? That seductive British charm? Wheatley must literally be Satan. Now, before you call me crazy, hear me out. There are very subtle, yet unmistakable hints that all point toward this, one of the biggest ones only literal minutes into the game. Right here. As Wheatley is performing a mental health checkup, listen to what he tries to get Chell to say.
You just jumped. But never mind. Say apple. Apple.
Did you catch that? Right there.
Apple.
That's right. Apple. But why would Wheatley choose the word apple? Some people would say that apple is a basic word that most children learn early on in their lives to reinforce the letter A. I would say those people are idiots, because if you'll open your Bibles with me to Genesis 3, we can read about the serpent, the craftiest of all animals who tried and succeeded in tricking Eve into eating the forbidden fruit with tempting lines like, "You will certainly not die, for God knows when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Now, was this little serpent actually Satan? Not officially, right? It's apparently just a talking snake. But, by that same token, it's a talking snake. And if all animals can supposedly talk, where was like the talking cow in the background going, "Oh, don't eat the forbidden fruit, Eve, oh." All I'm saying is, Wheatley is acting suspiciously like that serpent named Satan. Afterwards, Wheatley shows up again to tempt the player into finding a portal gun near an empty pedestal, which turns out to be structurally unsound and drops Chell down a pit. This may appear like an honest mistake, I'll give him that, but let's file this away for later. I think it'll be important. The next big clue we have towards Wheatley's true identity is this.
Let's go on one this time. Okay, ready? One. Catch me, ow! Ow.
Now, what seems like a funny bit about letting Wheatley fall on his head like he's my firstborn turns into a major part of his motivations later, but you won't know this unless you stall during the final fight until Wheatley lets it all out.
We've had some times, haven't we? Like that time I jumped off my management rail, not sure if I'd die or not when I did, and all you had to do was catch me, and you didn't, did you? Oh, you remember that? I remember that. I remember that all the time.
Point being, this guy is really hung up about the fact that you didn't catch him that one time, almost to like a comical degree. But let's look closer. There's only one reason why a reasonable robot like Wheatley would care so much about being dropped. Because he's still traumatized from having fallen in the past. And who else has fallen from grace? Revelations chapter 12 verses 7 through 9. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. What better character motivation for Wheatley to decide to turn on Chell at this very moment by tying it back to one of the most traumatic moments of his life where he literally fell from grace. Bravo, Eric Wolpa, you've done it again. At this point, Wheatley takes a backseat in terms of appearances and doesn't really show a whole lot more of his true devilish nature, but there are still 3 important things to note before we get there. 1. Wheatley once again causes us to fall downwards, this time not by accident but by his own call in order to try and find a way out. Again, this may look innocent, but keep it in mind alongside that first fall for later. Secondly, this is also the point where Wheatley drops his quote about God, let there be light. Up until now, Wheatley had shown minor infractions against being a good Christian boy, such as saying the Lord's name in vain.
Ah! God.
And lying for his own gain.
What's that behind you? It's only a robot on a bloody stick. A different one.
But this right here, to try and mock God's awesome power with a pathetic 60-watt light bulb, this was when I started to become suspicious. And finally, have a listen to this line.
Here's an interesting story, you might like this. I almost got a job down here in manufacturing, but guess who the foreman went with? Only an exact duplicate of himself, nepotism. Ended up giving me the worst possible job, tending to all the smelly humans.
What emotion does Wheatley appear to be showing? Because to me, it sounds a whole lot like he's envious of that Nepo baby, and while he may be justified, it's still the first thing that came out of his mouth. A normal emotion for anyone to have, but could there be more to this? Alright, let's skip ahead to when Chell replaces GLaDOS with Wheatley, giving him power over all of Aperture. After displaying an insane amount of wrath over a small comment, Wheatley smashes both Chell and GLaDOS into a massive hole, and at this point, I couldn't ignore the obvious. Once is an occurrence, twice is a coincidence. 3 times though, 3 times that Wheatley and falling into large pits are connected. This had to be a metaphor for Wheatley trying to send people to hell, either by force or temptation. The final nail on the cross here was when Wheatley tried one last time to tempt Chell into falling down a massive height by saying this.
Oh, could you just jump into that pit? Would you just jump into that pit for me?
Pit? Why the word pit? There's at least like 20 different synonyms for pit that would have worked, like tro or depression, and yet he chooses to use the word pit? There had to be a reason, and after a lot of digging, I found Revelations 20. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old who was the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and he cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set him and set a seal on him so that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. Alright, let's assume that this pit Wheatley keeps talking about is the equivalent of hell. Still leaves a lot of questions on the message the player should take away from this when the pit leads right into the old Aperture facilities and Cape Johnson. That's for another day. Let's instead focus on how Wheatley acts for the remainder of the game. As mentioned before, all the power Wheatley gains causes him to act wrathfully, trying to kill Chell multiple times over anger, and even comes up with the idea of wanting to use fire to burn Chell alive.
But, eventually, I'd like to get them to sort of shoot fire at you.
An interesting choice when there's so many other options, Mr. Prisoner of the Blazing Furnace. There's also this interesting line.
Got a yacht and boys. Loads of boys, fellas, hunky guys down there, possibly even a boyfriend. And a boy band as well, that haven't seen a woman in years.
Now, doesn't that strike you as funny? Chell never shows an interest in love or romance, yet one of the first aspects of human nature that Wheatley tries to exploit is lust. Speaking of lust, Wheatley also is primarily motivated by the sexual pleasures he experiences when Chell completes puzzles.
Oh, yes. Oh, well done. Oh, that's tremendous.
Lust, wrath, envy. Those are already 3 of the 7 deadly sins which when combined create Satan, as described in Deuteronomy 25 verse 11 through 12. And the Lord God commanded man, "You shall not let the 7 deadliest of sin converge in thy heart. For if any man shall allow such darkness to be present in thyself, Satan himself shall take root and emerge in his most wicked form, like an evil Voltron." Alright, so maybe the Bible never actually mentions the 7 deadly sins. Actually, there are no 7 deadly sins, that's just an anime. But, I don't think you can deny that showing these aspects doesn't really help Wheatley's case. As for the rest, gluttony. You may think this is impossible for a robot to showcase, but I say that this right here...
Let's try her way, alright? Fatty, adopted fatty, no parents.
...is a prime example of projection. I don't know how Wheatley has been packing on the pounds, but obviously it's on his mind. Greed. It's literally a character who's greedy for power. Pride. Wheatley's ego skyrockets through the roof towards the endgame, thinking himself to be the Moriarty to Chell's Sherlock, and pretending to read Machiavelli in order to keep up appearances, which, by the way, definitely not God-approved reading. Sloth. For sloth, I have nothing. People can't even agree in real religious debates what it means to be slothful, so whoa, look! Finally, Chell fights Wheatley to take him down, and here is where we reach the most damning piece of evidence, so just stay with me here. Wheatley starts with this.
Let's call that 3 minutes and then a minute break, but we should leave allegedly 2 minutes to figure out how to shut down whatever's starting all the fires. So anyway, that's the itinerary.
3 + 1 + 2, 6 minutes. Then, Wheatley starts attacking Chell by throwing bombs, but how many does he throw each time he attacks? Count them like Count Von Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6. That's right, 6 bombs. Finally, if you stall long enough, Wheatley will drop this little tidbit that is a surprisingly big deal for how hidden it is.
You didn't think you were the first, did you? No. Fifth. No, I lied. Sixth. Perhaps it's best to leave it to your imagination what happened to the other 5.
Chell is the 6th human Wheatley has tried to use in order to escape from his mundane little life. 6 minutes, 6 bombs, 6 humans. 666. The number of the beast, aka Satan himself. Quick side tangent here, if you'll give me 20 seconds, because why does 666 represent Satan anyways? Well, the thing is, right, okay, it really doesn't actually. You see, in Revelations 13, there is Satan, but he's represented mostly as a dragon. He summons 2 beasts, one from the ocean and one from the land. Satan gives the ocean beast his power and authority, so it may as well be Satan. Meanwhile, the land beast exercises all the authority of the first. After sending Wheatley to space, Chell finally gets to ascend to the surface, as if escaping the pits of hell, and opens the door to a massive wheat field with absolutely nothing around it. But wait, wheat? Like Wheatley? People have made this connection before, but what could it mean? How are the ending and our favorite little imp connected? Well, with all the previous context in mind, I think it's pretty obvious where we should turn to. Matthew 13, verse 24 onwards. The parable of the wheat and the weeds, which describe a farmer who planted wheat while his enemies planted weeds, both of which look alike while growing. The farmer was advised to pull out the weeds, but he also smartly recognized that pulling the weeds would pull out the wheat as well. But let's return to Portal 2's ending. We see a great field of wheat with no weeds. It seems someone, hint hint, our Father in heaven, has already pulled out the weeds. But what was the weed? Wheatley, who was hiding in plain sight like the devil with his ironic name, trying to convince us he is the beautiful wheat, when in reality, he is the weed hiding among that wheat. Truly poetry. No wonder Wheatley was 2nd place for 2011's Character of the Year. And with that, I'm sure the evidence speaks for itself. Wheatley is definitely Satan. Thank you for joining this week's Bible study session, and I'll see you next Sunday.